Thank you. Disclosure of interest. Any member of the City Council may disclose any possible conflict of interest dealing with either any item on the printed agenda or with any matter discussed at a previous meeting. Seeing none, move on to citizens' input. Each person in the audience may take this opportunity to address the City Council on any matter which is not on the printed agenda. Mr. Baker.
Good evening, Mayor. Good evening, council members. My name is Mark Baker. I'm with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 702. I'm here tonight to request voluntary recognition for the police department be placed on the next council meeting agenda for a workshop item. We currently represent the electric department and also the water and sewer departments here in the city with the municipal utilities. IBEW Local 702 represents the workers at Ozark Border Electric Cooperative and also M&A Power Electric Cooperative, all here in Poplar Bluff. Our request for voluntary recognition is in line with our previous request in representing the electric department and also the water and sewer departments. However, if voluntary recognition is not something the council would be willing to do, we additionally request an ordinance allowing for the establishment of representation election be presented at the next council meeting for the workshop agenda as well. Such an ordinance should already be in place, but to my understanding after speaking with the city manager and the city attorney last week, it is not currently on the books. It would be our request to run these items simultaneously for both the voluntary recognition agreement and also the ordinance that allows for a representation election be placed on the next council meeting agenda. I think that would be April the 2nd. Is that the next? Okay. And I haven't looked at my calendar. I think, is that the day before the election, municipal elections?
Yes.
Okay. It could be a busy time then. The reason we're asking for both simultaneously is so that there won't be any delay in securing representation for the police department. I would hope and ask the council to afford these tremendous public servants the same courtesy of voluntary recognition that you granted to other groups when we've come before you in the past. But if you decline, we believe they should at least have the option to an election for representation as soon as possible, which if an ordinance was workshopped on April the 2nd, it could be adopted on the April 16th, and then we could proceed right away with such process. I assume for many of you, this may or may not be the first time you've dealt with something like this, so I'd be happy to answer any questions as best I can or to explain any of the technical aspects on any or all of this situation. The way I understand it, in order to get placement on the agenda for any item, it would be at the request of the mayor or two council members, and I'm hoping to receive support here for both of our requested items tonight.
My thought process on this is, this being right before the election, I'm one of the ones that's up for election. I don't think it's fair to the citizens at all for us to do this because this is a matter that we all need to think about. And whoever sits in this seat, whether it be me or my opponent, doesn't need to me workshopping on one thing, and then if I lose, he votes on it the next time. So I would suggest we move this back to the 16th for a city council meeting for proper representation of city council, whether it be me or my opponent, for this particular matter that could be kind of controversial in a certain way or may not be.
I understand, and that's a completely valid, position for that. And I guess my request would be, I would still prefer or request that you all proceed with the ordinance for the representation election, because if we get to that 16th and then there's, you or whoever is in these seats.
What's the rush, though?
What's the rush?
Yes, sir.
These people have come to us and they've asked for representation, and we want to get it for them as quick as possible.
I just don't see it being on the 2nd. I don't know how anybody else would feel.
Well, and I don't think you all will make a decision on the 2nd. I mean, you can't.
I don't even think we need to workshop it on the 2nd.
That's what he's saying. The 2nd would be a workshop, and it would move
Yes,
to
sir.
the next 2 weeks, and it may be a change in two council members.
I understand. And I guess from my perspective, I would promote the establishment of the ordinance, maybe go ahead and workshop that on the 2nd anyway, because that's something that really should be on the books, and Mr. Richardson handles the legal aspects of it very well since the 2007 Supreme Court case here in Missouri kind of overturned public sector bargaining law. So there's reasons why that should exist with or without voluntary recognition.
My questions or concerns are, I want to do what is best for our police department, and I just need to do a research on what's the pros and cons of having them in a union. I thought maybe that's what you were going to explain tonight as well.
You would have to speak to them individually. I know what my promotion of the issue would be. My understanding is that they have fallen behind in not necessarily starting wages, but in kind of the separation of the higher level classifications. And I think that they want to have the ability to sit down and talk about their working conditions. I think they're very supportive of their current leadership and administration. I think there's a concern about, you know, will that person be there forever? And I think they want to make sure that they just secure what they currently have, you know.
Well, none of us are going to be here forever.
I
That's a
completely
known
understand.
fact.
I understand. And I think that's
But I
probably
would
the
like-
long-term concern.
Yeah, and I don't know what would hinder them from doing that now. If they have a concern, they have a city manager with an open door policy that they could go to, as well as their supervisor, you know, Chief Whiteley could come and voice that without having a union. So I'm just trying to weigh up pros and cons, why it's something that would be advantageous to them.
I think the history proves that that hadn't always been the case, and when there was a change in the chief at one point in time in the past, it was a lot of havoc went on in the department, and I think they're trying to avoid that long term.
But we've been under this administration for a long time, and there hasn't been a problem. I mean, they didn't bring it up when there was a problem. Why are they bringing it up now? And then, again,
They would have to speak for the
so I think that
timing
would,
on that.
I think the council would need the time to get to speak to with them before we make that decision, because this is a very big decision. In my opinion, I don't know how the rest of the council feels.
I understand. But I think that the delay is just a tactic used to keep them from getting their voice. And I think that's
Absolutely not.
something
It's,
that
my
that they
delay is to
deserve.
make the right decision. It is not to keep them from their voice. Their voice can be heard
This,
tonight.
this is what they want. We've got an overwhelming majority of cards signed. They're the ones that have pushed this thing. And I think for the people that go out there and put their lives on the line every day, this is what they've asked for.
What are your numbers?
What are
What
our
are your numbers?
numbers?
How many have signed up?
35 out of 50,
35 out of 50, okay.
70%.
So again, I'd like to meet with the police department and hear their point of view before I would make a decision. I mean, this has all just come up, you know, so don't like to make things in haste.
I understand. But I think they've had the opportunity, and everyone up here has had the opportunity to go and meet with them, and I don't know if that's happened or
I
not.
haven't, when you called this morning, it's the first time, I mean, I saw it in my packet, but I mean, I haven't had the opportunity to meet with any of them. It's the first I've heard of it is this weekend when we got our packet.
So you would be hesitant on voluntary recognition. How would you feel about the ordinance to push forward with that?
I'd like to meet with them first.
Okay, why the hesitation? Because it's something that the
Why the
city should
urgency?
have on the books to start with.
We'll leave that to our counsel,
Okay.
our attorney,
Mr. Richardson,
Mr. Richardson.
you have a comment on that?
Yeah, I do. That's a little bit of a misrepresentation, Mark, and I think you'll agree with that.
No, I don't agree with that.
Unionization by statute is controlled by the state of Missouri. Not until a 2007 decision out of the City of Independence did it change anything. And as a result of that, the state said, well, police unions are totally different, and we will not allow that process to go through the State Board of Mediation. You have to go through local cities and local ordinances. Would you agree with that?
Yes, I would.
All right. And there was no mandate from, and that's a court decision, not a statute. You agree with that?
There was a court decision for what?
There was a court decision allowing for the possible unionization of police departments, but there was no mandate from that court decision that either placed it under the State Board of Mediation or required municipalities to adopt ordinances for the election process.
That
Would you
is
agree with
correct.
that?
That is correct.
Okay. So You're not implying here that the city is in any way, since 2007, been negligent or in any way dilatory in adopting a possible procedural process to allow for a unionization election, are you?
No, I am not.
Okay, so you're not implying that the city has been stonewalling since 2007, are you?
No, this would be the first time
Okay.
this ordinance would have been
Yeah.
affected.
And the only time an ordinance would be required would be if the issue came up, is that right?
I think that's a fair statement, yes.
And the issue has only come up within the last 3 or 4 weeks, is that correct?
Yes, that is true.
Okay. Just wanted to clarify that.
I understand.
Because you're talking about denying our employees their right, and you're inferring stonewalling and delaying. And I want to make sure that everybody in this room, this council and this room understands that this is something that has not been previously required or even recommended by the municipal league or by anyone else, and we haven't had the opportunity to present this. Is that right?
That's fair.
And you understand that from our discussions, sir, that there are some serious disagreements with regard to the concept, the issue of a bargaining unit. Is that right?
We didn't really get too much into it. I know just a precursory look at it.
We did have that discussion, did we not?
Well, we had a discussion about who would be in and who would be out.
And-
we may or may not agree on that.
And your proposal is that the entire department minus 2 people ought to be a part of that bargaining unit. Is that correct?
That's our promotion.
Yeah, and that would be contradictory to non-police, normal State Board of Mediation determinations as to what a proper bargaining unit would be. Is that right?
That's not my interpretation.
Okay. You're aware of the fact that there is a body of law and precedents that would establish that the proper bargaining unit within this particular city would be somewhere closer to 20 than to 60 as you're presenting.
I would disagree wholeheartedly with
Okay,
that.
but you understand that there is disagreement about that, right?
I understand that you disagree with us.
So what you're asking this board to, this council to do, is to automatically accept a bargaining unit that includes everybody except the chief of police and the deputy chief of police. Is that right?
That is correct.
Okay. But you understand that there's serious case law and history within the State Board of Mediation outside of police departments that would disagree with that.
I'm not aware of that.
Okay. You're aware that that proposition exists, and that even if the city were to adopt an ordinance, first of all, which has to be done because the State Board of Mediation will not accept this process, that there has to be some process of determination as to an appropriate bargaining unit. You understand that?
I agree with that wholeheartedly.
And that would possibly be encompassed in the city ordinance, should be encompassed in the city ordinance. Is that right?
I think I would probably defer to our attorneys on that.
Okay. And I'm sure you would, and that's proper, Mark, and I'm not picking on you. But aren't you trying to leapfrog a little bit here? You're asking this city council to come in on April the 2nd, the day before a municipal election, and adopt a city ordinance that doesn't even contemplate the initial issue of the appropriate bargaining unit, and then to also, based upon that ordinance, ask this council to voluntarily accept a petition that we don't even know is properly signed, and whether it's signed by the appropriate members of the bargaining unit, which has not yet been determined. Would you agree with that?
You lost me about halfway through. I'm sorry about that.
Aren't you really suggesting here a floodgate? Aren't you really looking for something here tonight to just blow this thing through the system before anybody has a chance to consider it? Folks in favor of unionization, folks against unionization, aren't you just trying to blow this system up by throwing something through the system that has not really been well thought out?
It was well thought out on my side, and until we met last Wednesday, I was prepared to present the voluntary recognition for workshopping tonight. And after
And-
we met on Wednesday, I understand it has to be
Yeah.
agreed to be put on the agenda.
And you also wanted it to be voluntarily recognized for a unit that included 58 out of 60 members, 80% of which are supervisors, and just assume that the city council is going to blindly accept the fact that the appropriate bargaining unit ought to be that entire group?
That is why I sent it to Mr. Massingham for review, because I thought we would probably have these discussions.
Okay. And that's what we're having tonight, Bart.
Fair enough. Fair
And-
enough.
And I'm glad that you're here, I'm glad we're having this discussion, but there are a lot of issues here that need to be discussed, debated, and resolved before this city council would simply voluntarily recognize a unit that they don't even know what it is, who's composed, who comprises the unit. Don't you think
And that was part of our
those
discussion.
issues need to be resolved first?
Well, that was part of our discussion last Wednesday, was we showed the chart that took out the chief and the deputy chief, and we said, hey, this is where the rest of it is to us, and then if you disagree with that, let's have those conversations.
And don't get me wrong, Mark, I appreciate our discussion that we had
Absolutely.
last week. That was the first discussion that we had.
Fair enough.
When you and the manager and I sat down and we started talking about these issues, there are a lot of issues to be resolved, right?
I understand.
Appreciate your strong representation of folks that you say want to be a part of a union. We don't know that. We take that at faith from you at this point. Is that a fair statement?
Yes, you have in the past, and like we discussed last Wednesday, it would be more than fair for you all to appoint a neutral party to inspect the cards. That's, a clergy person or somebody like that you trusted, and we'd be very open and receptive to that.
Right.
But like I shared with you last Wednesday, the first time I come and lie to you all, my credibility's shot forever, and I simply can't do that. I won't do that.
Yeah, and I don't think anybody in this room is challenging your credibility
Fair enough.
personally or your union,
Fair
because your union has been around since, I think, 1907, is that when we?
1911.
1911, yeah.
Yes, sir.
Just before World War I. And you do represent two units here in our city, and you represent the cooperative and also the wholesale distribution folks.
Yes, sir.
This will be the first, well, I guess other than the city of Minor, which has got, 3 police officers, this will be the first police department that your organization has ever represented. Is that true?
It would be the second, being the city of Minor being the first.
Yeah.
I think there's 6 officers in that group.
Okay. And that includes the elected chief and a deputy that are not part of the unit, right?
The elected chief is not part of the unit, but everybody else is.
So you got a unit of 4 or 5 people over there, is that right?
6 officers and 4 dispatchers in that group.
Okay.
Yes, sir.
But other than that one, in the entire IBEW 702, you don't represent police departments anywhere.
No, sir, it's
Is that
traditionally a little bit
represented-
outside of our scope.
I'm just curious, was that represented to our police officers as you were collecting signatures? Were they concerned about that or worried about the fact that you may be a union that is a very good union, but not really well established with, or with much of a history of representing police or fire departments, is that right?
There was actually, I won't say lengthy discussion, it wasn't lengthy, but these people actually sought us out because of our presence here in Poplar Bluff, I assume, and we actually were asked about the Fraternal Order of Police, the FOP, versus, 702. And I said, they're entirely different. We do 2 different things. The FOP traditionally has the Legal Defense Fund, and my response back to the officers and the people that we met with was, you need to keep your affiliation with the FOP. It's not like it's got to be one or the other. We do 2 separate things. Both have their advantages, and you need to affiliate with both.
But since the City of Independence decision in 2007, FOPs have become lawful representatives, have they
Yes, sir.
not?
Yes, sir.
And they actually have transitioned because of that, and we keep talking about the independents. That we're both referring to a Supreme Court case in 2007 out of the city of Independence,
Yes, sir.
Missouri, where it said that police organizations could, in fact, unionize, but it didn't go far enough, and statute has not since developed that to make them, so they're sort of a little bit of a stepchild, right? And instead of having the protections and the processes of the State Board of Mediation, which all other bargaining units have, they've said, okay, police officers, you can unionize. And if you want to use the OFOP, which we've had around for a long, long time, you can do that. But you can't come to the State Board of Mediation and ask us to mediate what the appropriate bargaining unit is and all those kinds of things. You got to go back to the cities on a case-by-case basis and have individual cities establish that process of, first of all, bargaining unit issue, which is that's the threshold issue. Would
Fair
you
enough.
not agree?
I would agree with that, yes, sir.
And then the process for overseeing the collection of signatures, the election, and so forth and so on. And what that City of Independence case did was say, you just got to go back to the individual cities and let individual cities, willy-nilly, if you will, adopt processes. And we haven't done that in Poplar Bluff.
I understand that.
And you're asking us to do that in the next 3 weeks.
Like you said, the traditional route with the State Board of Mediation, and I don't mean to correct you, just I want to verify, Independence case 2007 was the Independent School District with the Missouri National Education Association.
Yeah.
And basically what it did, it overturned the interpretation of the Missouri Constitution, and it did say public sector employees do have the right to collectively bargain. Then there were a couple of follow-up cases with City of Chesterfield and University City around the police officers that more or less came out of those decisions was that the city, the public sector employer does have to create an ability for them to have a representation election. The city does have to bargain in good faith towards a first contract. So, you know, with all of that being said, when we try to organize a municipality, the first thing we have to do is ask for voluntary recognition, because when we go to the State Board of Mediation to ask for an election, they respond back to us and say, have you asked for voluntary recognition? They don't want to talk to us until we've done that. So was I trying to speed the process up? I'm trying to go through the process. That's what my angle is. And it's not intended to pressure anybody or do anything too fast. I understand the need for deliberations, completely understand that. Yeah. I'm just wanting to work through the process is what my angle is.
And thanks for that, Mark. And I don't disagree with anything you said. You did fine-tune and clarify. The Independence was the foothold. Then we had two subsequent cases where the courts attempted to further clarify, further define, but nothing either before or since 2007 has come from the state legislature. No statutory laws. So we're all just sort of plowing our ways through in the absence of statute,
Yes, sir.
trying to figure out exactly what court cases and court opinions, judicial opinions, have said. Is that a fair statement?
Absolutely.
So we're on the same.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'm not questioning you, and you're not questioning me on
Correct.
that, but that's the process we are in here now. The City of Poplar Bluff is looking at the process of adopting a fair and proper procedural policy as to how you go about recognizing for the first time ever the city police department, the firefighters, our fire department, and so forth. And in that process, there are multiple stages that have to be addressed. The first and foremost one is, what is an appropriate bargaining unit?
Understand.
Okay. So we're in agreement. And I respect you, I believe you, I trust you. I just want to make sure that this council and the public understands that this is a process that is not well established.
Understood.
And each city, and there are not very many cities that have gone through this process since 2007, and the subsequent University City and Chesterfield cases have adopted. I don't know, maybe you do, how many cities across this entire state have even had to go through this process. I don't know of any. There are probably some that have.
I agree.
But
I know the city
Commonwealth
of
may very
Sikeston-
well be the first one.
Well, I know the city of Sikeston did pass an ordinance in 2013. I ran into that a couple years ago with their street and parks department when they organized.
But even that ordinance has not been put into place, right?
No, because they gave us voluntary recognition.
Yeah,
And,
okay.
and actually,
Okay.
they did it in violation of their policy, but that's their business. It worked out for us. And back to Ms. McVeigh's question, I want to make sure everybody understands. I appreciate the comments that you've made that have been more than complimentary to us and to my union. Our goal is to improve the working lives of the people that we represent. And you've got a fantastic police department here. I've done a little reading up on it and the history and everything, and I was really blown away when I started to understand the depth and the reach that the department had and the respect that they have across the state and across the nation. I'm learning about. So this is not, and I come before you tonight, hopefully as a friendly, this is not an aggressive organizing campaign. It was the interest of the people. They reached out to us. It is a little bit out of our traditional mold, but I think this is, I said seem to have a fairly good relationship with the council and the leadership of the city. I said, hopefully we can do some good. That was our goal and my personal intention. So, any other questions?
No, I just wanted to say, I think everybody up here wants what's best for the police department, and, at this time, we just need to work through the process and see, and go from there.
Very good. Thank you, Mark.
Thank you. Now we'll move on to consent agenda. The items on the consent agenda are approved by a single action of the city council. If any council member would like to have an item removed from the consent agenda and is considered separately, he or she may request to do so.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we approve the consent agenda as presented by the city clerk.
Second.
Motion second to approve. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. We're on to workshop items. Item A, the city council will review architectural services submitted for the Rogers Theater project and will select a firm for the project. Mr. Massingham?
Yes, as you said, this is for the Rogers Theater project. Staff has recommended Dilly and Traxel for the project, which I think we did about this time last year when we were applying for the grant. So we're recommending Dilly and Traxel.
Entertain a motion and a second to move this to the voting session to be held tonight.
So moved, Mayor. Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item B, the city council review a CDBG program application, Form M, regarding Section 3 utilization.
Yes, this is a form, it's a requirement of CDBG program, and simply states the city will adhere to the goals and objectives of Section 3 of the Housing Nerd Development Act.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we move this to the voting session to be held tonight.
Second.
I believe it's for the voting session, April 2nd.
This says tonight on B.
Yeah, it's on the second
Oh.
ballot, included on the consent.
Just reading what I read. I make a motion that we move it to the voting session to be held on April 2nd.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item C, the city council reviews CDBG program application, Form N, regarding residential anti-displacement and relocation assistance plan.
This is also a requirement of CDBG. It's just a different form, Form N instead of M.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion that we move item C to the voting session to be held April 2nd.
Second.
Motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item D, the city council review a recommendation from the Municipal Utilities Advisory Board regarding an amendment to the current collective bargaining agreement between the City of Poplar Bluff and International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers Local 702. Mr. Box?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, this amendment would change Article 23, Section 2 with a change in the classification title from bookkeeper to account information clerk. With the retirement of personnel, we're proposing several changes to the classifications job duties. These duties will reflect the changes with technology in our billing and collection software. There will be no change in the pay scale. We discussed this at the advisory board earlier today and would recommend this change. Any questions?
Make a motion to pass the voting session.
Second.
Motion second passes to the voting session April 2nd. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. City Council will review a recommendation from the Municipal Utilities Advisory Board regarding an amendment to the sewer use ordinance.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, members of the council, I've worked on this document for almost a year. It's between Department of Natural Resources, Environmental Protection Agency, legal counsel, and our engineers to come up with the document that's before you now for the new sewer use ordinance. If you want, I can go through this, everything is highlighted, or I'm hoping you will accept them. I really don't want to talk about them anymore. It is what it is. It's the sewer use ordinance.
I'm sorry. Go ahead, sir.
We discussed this at the advisory board earlier today and would recommend this ordinance. Any questions?
Make a motion to pass the voting session April 2nd.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item F, the City Council will discuss a resolution authorizing the appointment of directors of Poplar Bluff Regional Transportation Development District. Mr. Massey.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor and Council. Dennis Avery, the former city planner, held a position on that board, and we're asking that Michelle Deacon, our accounting manager, to replace Dennis on the board.
No questions? I'd entertain a motion and second to move this to the voting session to be held tonight.
Motion.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item G, the City Council will discuss a resolution authorizing the appointment of directors to the Oak Grove Transportation Development District.
Yes, this is the same circumstances. Dennis was on the board, and we're asking that Michelle be placed on the board in his place.
Make a motion.
to pass the voting session.
Second.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Item H, the City Council will consider the City of Poplar Bluff becoming a veteran-friendly city. Mrs. Hall, Director of the VA.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor, council members. I'm really excited to talk to you a little bit tonight to share an opportunity I think we have. The City of Poplar Bluff is positioned in the perfect place to become a veteran-friendly community. And as many of you know, I actually have a Community Veteran Engagement Board. It's chaired by Dr. Wes Payne from the college. And we would like to go down the route of pursuing veteran-friendly community status. But before we did, we wanted to talk to our fine city to make sure that that was something that was of interest. Let me share with you just a little bit about what that entails and why we think that we're specifically poised for something of that nature, and why it would be good for our community, which is the most important. First of all, they look at the economy, moderate cost of living, ease of travel and transportation, growth, and unemployment rate. Our town has one of the lowest unemployment rates actually in the entire state of Missouri. It's 2-point-something%, 4, 6, depending on who you ask on what day. But that's incredibly low unemployment, and we continue to have businesses that come into the community that would be great opportunities to bring veterans in, which is something that our new employers would like to do, is to have more people actually seeking to come into our town to populate those new jobs. Housing, the housing costs are very marginal, and there are options. And I'm going to come back to housing in 1 minute because that's the one other thing that I really would like to ask the council for. Employment, like I said, there's a low unemployment rate and there's growth and options. Education, we have a great school system, and we have higher level education right here in our own backyard, which is often not in smaller communities. Not only do we have TRCC, but they're well affiliated with, you can get all the way up to a master's degree and never leave Poplar Bluff, which is, I think, fantastic. Healthcare, we've got multiple choices, to include a VA, which is very rare in a small town. Usually VAs are positioned in very large metropolitan areas, so for us to be a rural hub for veterans in this area is something special, I think, for Poplar Bluff. We have great community support, county, state, and federal veteran services, and federal veteran services are readily available in all aspects, both cemetery as well as benefits. And then our community's shown support, just in the short time that I've been here, tremendous support for veterans, and our veterans are very well integrated into the community. I know some of you are veterans. Thank you for your service. And just simple things like during our Veterans Week that we had, not Veterans Day, Veterans Week, we had multiple businesses that gave perks and discounts to our veterans, and some of those continue throughout the year. So those are the reasons why we would like to pursue it, and we have experts in all of those different venues that can kind of take that on and foster that and see that through. The one thing I'd like the council to consider is the mayor's challenge for ending veteran homelessness. I do have some handouts that I will hand to you as soon as I'm done talking. I'm sorry I didn't have those sitting out here earlier. But this challenge is a challenge to end homelessness, and I think we're pretty well poised in this as well. What this does is say we as a community want to wrap our arms around ending veteran homelessness. And I think this is a great opportunity for us, because if we can get this right, we can expand it into just homelessness in general. Our point in time, we just had a point in time count for veteran homelessness. We found 6 unhoused veterans and had immediate housing offered to them, as well as 13 others that were in need of housing on that particular count. And that was January 24th, so that's a pretty recent statistic. I say that because that demonstrates that the challenge of unhoused veterans, eligible veterans, is not monumental. Part of the reason it's not monumental is because we do have immediate, transitional, and housing first long-term housing options for our veterans, both with our mission, our transitional housing with some of the other entities around, like Peaceful Pines for one that we use a lot for our veterans. And then we have our HUD-VASH vouchers. We have 65 veterans that are currently housed with HUD-VASH vouchers. What this would do, what this opportunity does for us is my own staff that count this and keep all the data and statistics could put an emphasis on keeping these statistics so that we could actually say that we've ended eligible veteran homelessness in our town. We only have 3 places in Missouri that did it: Independence, Missouri, Kansas City, and what I mean by did it was saying that they would take the challenge, not even that they have ended. Kansas City, Missouri, Independence, Missouri, and Joplin. So there have been no other towns on this side of Missouri that have even said, let's give this a whirl. I think that we've got a lot of housing options, and I do believe that we'll even have more options in the near future. So housing our veterans is a monumental task for us, and it is one of the key elements toward a veteran-friendly community. And that's what I wanted to bring to the board. I know that's probably a lot to think about, but what I'm looking for is a blessing for my Community Veteran Engagement Board to look down that road for having that honor bestowed upon our community. Can I answer any questions?
So just what do we need to do? What do you need us to do?
The one thing that I need the council to do is to decide if they would like to take the mayor's challenge to end veteran homelessness. I don't see that as a lot of work on this, on the town, because we have a lot of pieces in place. And what we have to demonstrate to consider ourselves eradicated of veteran homelessness is 90 days of no chronic or long-term veterans homeless. And I have, like I said, I brought some of the information for that. And if you would like to discuss it and make that decision at a future date, I would be very understanding of that.
Is there a cost to the city?
No.
And who determines the criteria if they're homeless?
The criteria is listed here. The criteria is not housed and accepting of housing. And it is for, fortunately or unfortunately, however you want to look at it, it is for eligible veterans. So as all of you know, there are many veterans that are not considered eligible for VA services for a whole host of reasons. So this really does parcel out, for purposes of this, it only counts eligible veterans. Like I said, in the future, we can use this as a city, just the knowledge of all of the immediate, transitional, and long-term methods for housing our veterans, or housing people in general, to help our homeless population in general.
Who will monitor it? Will it go through your office? I mean, we
I
wouldn't
have
have a staff that would monitor it.
I
so-
have a homeless staff.
So it
that-
would be monitored through your
Mhm.
office? Okay.
We would probably need to heighten public awareness of this mayor's challenge. But there are fantastic organizations already working within the community that bring those homeless veterans to us for housing.
So we as a city council are basically just a support,
It's a support.
and then personally a hands-on if that's what they choose.
Mm-hmm.
But no city
I
funds
have
are
a-
spent on it.
No.
Yeah.
No. I have a staff that already does this. I have immediate housing contracts already, transitional contracts, as well as the HUD-VASH voucher system that I utilize for veterans.
I'm all for this. I'm one of the ones around here that's a veteran myself. But the one thing I've always struggled with, when you mentioned something that kind of struck a nerve with me. A veteran's a veteran. And you're sitting here telling me that it's either some veterans aren't eligible for even a homeless situation?
And I agree with you.
To me, that's ridiculous.
And I agree with you. Unfortunately, it's congressionally mandated what
Why can't we
what
just make it so
determines-
for us to make all of our veterans
Well,
not
and
homeless?
that's why I feel, Mr. Crocker, I feel very, very strongly with that, being a veteran myself. And I can give you personal examples of where we've run into some really sad situations that we've worked with other entities in our community to house veterans because we couldn't do it ourselves. But by determining all of these methods of housing, we can expand those boundaries for other veterans, for other people in our community. Homelessness can happen to any good person, not just a good veteran.
I understand
So-
that, but, speaking,
Yeah.
I was a member of the Legion for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And part of our concern was always, why is there always an eligibility factor with a veteran situation? If you served in your military, you're a veteran. No matter, why do you have to be a special thing that, okay, I served in the Korean War, I served in this war, I didn't serve during this time, so I don't get this benefit? A lot of times it's confusing to a veteran itself.
Absolutely.
And so I was hoping that we could, I'm glad you were open to not just necessarily picking and choosing which veteran may be eligible, which veteran may not. All of us together as one. That's what I want to strive for as a city. To me, that's what makes us a veteran-friendly city. That we just don't say, you get it because you served in this conflict, but you don't get it because you didn't. And I don't want that kind of
You've served
restriction.
20 years in the National Guard, and I can't help you. That's an example.
Yes,
Those,
ma'am.
those are the ones that break my heart. I'm like, really? You served 20, you have a military retirement and I can't help you. But if we get good at determining all of our resources in the community for this one population, there is no reason why we can't expand creatively utilizing those housing opportunities for other people. I can't use my money for some of that. That would be illegal. Congress would not allow that of me, but certainly there are many other entities in the town that we can partner with for those circumstances.
Many years ago, I worked at the VA, and it is heartbreaking to have a veteran turn away because he's considered not eligible. And the criteria there is if they got injured in the war and that part of their injury was covered. But if they came in with a cold, then it wasn't considered, it made him ineligible as a veteran. It didn't mean they turned him away from medical care, it just did make him an eligible veteran. So there was a real huge criteria, and I think our hospital definitely was a veteran-friendly hospital as much as possible, but when there's so many funds to go around, they have to treat those that were injured in service first, and then as it trickles down the line, if there's any left over, they treat everyone that comes into emergency room, but that's the criteria. So you can not be eligible but still get treatment. And my son was in the service and wasn't injured, so he's a veteran, but yet he's an ineligible veteran, type thing, so. But I think it
just while
sounds,
they're researching it would possibly bring up some of these other things that you're talking about and probably give us an avenue to spread out even below. We don't have to stop at a certain line on this. We can go ahead and do what we think's right for the rest of the veterans and do whatever we need to.
but that's what I was looking for, a hub. I think this would be an excellent opportunity to be one of the first veterans-friendly cities in the state, first on the east side of the state for sure. And then we have a hub that you would have a pool of resources, not just in your criteria within the government, but other, say the landlord associations or the different ones that may have housing that would utilize HUD and that sort of thing. So you would they'd have a go-to place that they don't really have now. They're homeless. They don't know where to go. And just somebody could reach out and help them, which I think sounds like a very good
Yes.
opportunity for our city. And then we have the new housing unit that's preference to
Exactly.
veterans as well.
And that's why I really point out that we're already poised to just put these pieces together and highlight them. Highlight what we already have here. We've got immediate housing, we've got transitional housing, and then we've got the long-term housing through our HUD-VASH vouchers. And we've got good options for those HUD-VASH vouchers as well. Some cities struggle with not having enough appropriate housing to even utilize the voucher system, but we have pretty good options for that as well.
We are truly blessed here.
Have you connected with any other resources in the community as yet, besides the council?
Well, our CVEB has people that sit on it from different members of the clergy to the chamber. So I think that we're pretty well-rounded as far as community resources. And each one of those key people then have some tentacles into other avenues to include, like I said, the mission and some of the other housing and economic development and jobs and things of that nature, education.
I think it's wonderful.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion, we move this to voting session to be held April 2nd.
Second.
Motion second to move this to the voting session, April 2nd. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries.
And then, can I hand these to
Yes,
you
ma'am.
now? Okay.
We can just pass them around if you want us to. There you go.
Mr. Mayor, on this next item, at any risk of having conflict of interest, I'll remove myself from that discussion.
Thank you, Director. Item I, the city council will discuss the formation of a residential housing advisory board. Massingham?
Yes, Mr. Mayor, 2 meetings ago, you all asked me to bring back a recommendation for a board. It was actually brought up by the local landlords. I put together something here, and I'm not sure this is exactly what the landlords were asking for. So really, after I read through all this, and I open it up for discussions and see if there's any recommendations or changes from the council or anybody in the audience. The board makeup would consist of a member of the city council, the city planner, a code enforcement officer, a local realtor, and a representative from the Butler County Landlords Association. That'd be 5 members. Board qualifications will be, board members will be appointed by the city council using the criteria listed above. All board members must own real property within the city limits of Poplar Bluff. The purpose, it is the purpose of this board to promote and protect the residential neighborhoods within the city limits of Poplar Bluff. Responsibility of the board, for the last several years, the city of Poplar Bluff has experienced a decline in the condition of its residential neighborhoods. Code enforcement violations and derelict vacant houses have become a problem in all areas of town. This board is created to receive input and suggestions from its members for the city administration and the city council to consider possible solutions to alleviate these areas of concern and help revitalize neighborhoods within the city of Poplar Bluff. The board will also be an avenue for the city and the local landlord association to communicate with each other on a regular basis concerning rental property within the city limits. This is an advisory board only, and any suggested changes to any ordinances or policies must be passed by a majority of the city council. Like I said, I'm not sure this is exactly what they were asking for. I tried to reach out to some other communities and really didn't find anybody that had anything like this. I thought Perryville did, but it really wasn't similar to this. But I'll just open this up for discussion for any recommendations from you all, or I know there's some landlords in the audience that may want to speak on it.
I know I've said this piece before, but I just think it's a very valuable, open avenue for us to communicate with the, not just necessarily the landlords. I'm glad they brought it up. I appreciate them bringing this to our attention. But I don't think we've ever had a direct one-on-one communication avenue with the landlord association. That being said, with the makeup of this, it's kind of a diverse effect, and it might even be a better thing than what we started out with before. So I'm all in favor of this.
I'm concerned with the cost again. There'd be the administrative cost. You're going to have some employees that are going to be compensated, I'm sure, for their time that they serve on it. You've got the advertising cost, and under the light of our situation with the city budget right now, I don't know if it's something we want to take on. And since you've not found another city doing it, that's an indicator that it may not be something that is doable.
Well, just because another city hasn't done it doesn't mean it can't be effective. I think maybe if by using this board, it may even save us money by being able to migrate different resources together in order for us to solve some problems that right now we're saying this person's responsible or that person's responsible, and maybe by this we can have an open dialogue. I don't think the cost would be that overwhelming for us to have a board of this nature. If that's the case, then maybe we can look at some other boards that we may not really need and dissolve them to have this one be active.
That's a thought.
How much time is it going to take for the city employees? Will it not be in their regular daily schedule?
Well, usually the board meetings, our board public meetings occur in the evening hours, so 5 or 7, whatever the board would choose.
And how much time will that be that we will be paying them?
Well, the city planner's a department head. Of course, you all only make $1 a year, so.
So right now, we're not
You know,
counting
possibly the code enforcement officer.
We can't spend that dollar either. It's stuck in the pot.
No, you can't.
in the advertising expense, there's not really that much advertising expense, is there?
We would advertise for the placement of the original board, and then it would come up every year during board appointments.
So that's just the one initial,
And meetings. You'd have to advertise for meetings as
And
well.
we have to advertise for meetings. But
but how much do you spend on that advertising?
I'm not sure. I'd have to, yeah, we'd have to pay a secretary also for the meeting. I mean, my take on this, I know it came from the Landlords Association, but after my statements at the last meeting about our neighborhoods, I kind of took it at a different approach, and I don't know.
Maybe they can speak as to what their goals are to help us too. If you guys want to come forward and speak as to what our objective is and what makes it beneficial to us, that could be helpful.
I'm Greg West. I'm one of the members of the Butler County Landlord Association. And I think what Manager Massingham has outlined on it said it pretty good. Basically, it's just a direct dialogue line between property owners, city council, code enforcement for the betterment of Poplar Bluff. I see no negative to it. As far as costs, I don't know what it costs for your other boards you have, but I don't think that would be very significant in the overall scheme of things, especially when you liken it to, like Councilman Crocker said, if we can clean up some things and divert some of that cost from the city or what have you, being, put on the responsible parties, I think it'll pay for itself. Not to mention just, well, everybody here has driven around, and I've personally taken some of you and shown you some things that the degradation of some areas is just appalling and embarrassing. And I think this would be a step in the right direction to help it. I'm open to any questions you've got.
Well, I agree, but it doesn't just necessarily affect landlord or rental property. I
No,
would say
absolutely
that's
not.
a problem that affects the aggregate in the community. It seems like most boards or your boards are for the benefit of the overall community. And in this sense, with the landlord board, it seems like it is focused on that particular group, the landlords. And the benefit of working with the city and cleaning things up is a good thing, but I feel like there is an avenue for you all to address the council or any department in the city that deals with some of these issues. Mr. Black is a councilman, and he's kind of a built-in liaison. But there may very well be some benefits.
Well, the thing of it is, Councilman Davis, there's plenty of homes in Poplar Bluff that are not rental homes that need cleaned up.
Right.
And so the benefit's going to be, it's irrelevant whether it's a rental home or a homeowner occupied home. It still needs cleaned up, and those things would be addressed. I mean, I know of a particular house right now that's over on Apple Street that is completely atrocious. Doors open, couches around it, trash everywhere, wasn't mowed probably twice last year. Would you want to live by that? And that's a homeowner.
Well, that's what I was saying.
Yeah,
what I was-
that's a homeowner.
Right.
So, any type of property that's going to be, that you wouldn't want to live by is what's going to be, is what I see as being addressed. So.
I do think this would help with assisting in cleaning up the blight of the community. Just it gives us a different perspective of, guys, you see this? We may not catch something that somebody in the homeowner association or a realtor like Rendo or somebody would see that it would affect them at that moment in time. Look, I'm trying to sell this house, but look at the next door to it. And
That's a perfect example. Perfect.
Well, we are
Brenda
looking-
driving by, you drive by two houses that are trashed, trying to sell somebody's house, or you drive by two houses that are trashed, trying to rent a house to somebody. I've personally had many people when, it's like, oh my God, I gotta go buy this. And never mind, I don't even need to look. I'm not gonna live by that. You wouldn't want to live by that, Councilman Davis.
So the board can't issue violations. What would the board do? Send the list to the city manager or to the code enforcement officer? Or what's the next step? Once you identify these properties, then what would the next step be for the board that we don't already have in place?
Don't you have the code enforcement officer on that?
Yes.
So they would, code enforcement would be there
There's
already.
things that, okay, every person here, you're only human, you make mistakes, or you overlook something. So, I think it's an avenue to help bolster the code enforcement officers, oh, hey, I missed this one. And in other words, respond to a problem quicker before it becomes a bigger problem.
So the board would send it through the code enforcement officer, like as a report? Maybe we would get a monthly report?
I mean,
Where we,
I don't have the answer to that.
I'm just trying to help find it too. I mean, I don't know either. I mean,
Sure, we can give a report of the minutes of the meeting, you know, here's a list of addresses or properties that are a problem that need to have attention, you know.
And I know as a councilman, for many years, people call and tell me something is derelict, and we know that there's code enforcement. There's also a process that they have to go through. So it isn't a fast turnaround, because many times they'll fix one board or one window, or they'll clean up 2 sacks in the yard that gets them out of the ticket or postpone another fine. I mean, I just don't know how it's gonna, you can't change the process, even though I understand the intent and I want it cleaned up as well as you do. I just know that just because you turn that address in doesn't mean it's gonna be fixed in 30 days. You know what I mean? Because the landowner, some of them don't care.
I agree with you and disagree at the same time. And the reason I say that is, maybe we can increase the focus on landowners or renters that choose to ignore it. And by,
And what would that focus be?
the focus would be, use the ordinances you have in place. Your local municipal judge, Judge Million, said that every day that a property is in violation of an ordinance, there can be another citation, okay? That doesn't happen. But the judge saying it can. Well, that'll build a fire under somebody if they start doing that.
I kind of look at this, Susan, I see your point, but I kind of look at this too from our perspective is it would be in the consent agenda. Kind of like the, I don't know, Arts and Museum Board. We don't really see them in any kind of council meeting, but we get a meetings
Right.
minutes from them.
But I read those minutes.
I do too. But we don't read anything now.
Oh, I
from-
don't mean
from-
up here. I
from
just
this
mean,
no, I'm
we
not.
would still get report.
I
Okay.
understand, Susan.
Okay.
But what I'm trying to say is maybe we could get some information from a board like this to help us with the blight of the city. Because when we pass the consent agenda, maybe they could say, well, you know, have the code enforcement do this. I don't really know where we're going with it right now, but
I
I
think-
love the idea of having an open dialogue. Just look at our city. We could clean this, just like Mark said. You drive around, I drive around the city every Sunday morning. And you see things that going, wow, what's that? Wow, why are we allowing this to happen? We only have so many resources right now at our fingertips in order for us to fix it. And it just doesn't seem like we have enough resources. This is a very cheap, economical way for us to maybe focus on things that we can fix immediately and come with a plan for long term. It could be something that's organic that could grow into something rather cool that other cities may pick up on. That's just my opinion on it.
I see if we have more code enforcement officers, because they don't have enough boots on the street. I mean, they're overwhelmed with as many derelict homes as there is in this town. I see that is more beneficial than adding a board that gives you another list when they can't even get to all that they can get to. So I'm just trying to see, is this going to add to that labor of that employee or the courts? You see what I'm saying? It's like, just because you're turning in 10 more names than what he gave out, it's not still going to fix it. And then some people, you can give them a citation every day of the week, and they're still not going to fix it.
Well, in my opinion, if they come up to the board, this Residential Housing Advisory Board, with a certain amount of complaints, that code enforcement officer's not going to have to do as much driving around, you know, looking for things. He'll see it, and he can go directly to those locations and agree, yes, that's in violation of the ordinance, and I need to send it through court. And
I mean, I
Let
myself
Lois
do that
clean
now. I
everything up.
see addresses and turn them into, was Dennis. I mean, and then, you know, he would turn it into his people to go check them out. So, I mean, I could see how anyone could do that without having a board. I mean,
Well, you're talking about cost involved by the city, and you just got through saying you can add another code enforcement officer. I can promise you that'll cost more than this board.
we can't afford to do that, but I don't know how you're going to be able to afford to put extra burden on this person if you're not
Well-
adding new people.
I don't know that we're trying to add.
I'm not
burden
here
to
to
this person.
argue. I'm really just trying to find out what's our vision, where are we going, why do we need this? Because
Well,
if you
I'm-
don't know where you're going, how do you know you got there?
That's what I'm trying to help explain.
Okay.
Is, like I said, we might bring something to light that they're not aware of, just like Philip said. We could provide them with pictures, we can provide the addresses, and then they can send it through the court system. As far as revenue, you know, the first fine that the city can offer on a code violation is $200. And my, the municipal court has a little handout here, and I've given some of you that handout. The first fine's $200, the second fine's $275, the third one's $350, and the fourth one's like $475. That happens within a 12-month period. Well, that's generating some pretty substantial revenue to help pay for things if that's what the municipal court will do. Now, so it can be a self-solving problem by, if the people don't do it, we've generated enough fines, they pay the fines, maybe it'll pay, because the way I understand it, the ordinance says on every notice of violation says that the city may come in and clean this up, and my understanding is that normally the street department is the one that gets tasked with that burden. Well, if you got, I don't know what that adds up to, Philip, you're pretty quick, about $1,000, well, over a 12-month period, that'd pay for pretty good cleanup in a place. So, there you go. There's a potential avenue to help pay for it itself.
But can't that exist without the board? That's what I'm
It
saying.
hasn't.
Can I
Okay.
say one thing?
Need your name and address, please.
Beverly Roach, 211 County Road 4416.
Closer to the mic.
Okay, I'm on the landlord board as well, and more than anything, you know, if we have a problem and we call code enforcement, then they have an excuse for it. If we call a police officer, they have an excuse for it, or someone else does. When you start getting different people from different areas, say a realtor, maybe a police officer, code enforcement, whatever, we all get to talk together and we find out what we've tried, what works. Possibly we could find some of these groups that could help and do some free work or something like that. But when we get everyone together, the ideas start coming in. And whenever you just talk to one department, they get defensive with it.
Okay.
And we're not trying to pinpoint anyone. We know everyone's working, they're shorthanded and everything. But if we can all work together and put our heads together, it's just kind of like a community discussion. Ideas start coming out of it and we get things done.
That sounds good.
Right along those same plans, one of the ideas that we had and heard about was having people have to do community service. If people have to do community service, if there are X number of properties that are identified, have community service people come and work on them. I think Felicity, didn't y'all used to have community service people in the?
Right, yeah, we got about 58 hours last month, and we
So-
need about 650 from it
Well, there's,
to keep up at our center. recycling center.
I mean, so it's not all about cost. Those are folks that need community service to fulfill their requirements. This would be another avenue they could. I mean, we're here looking to try to help with solutions. That's what we're trying to do. Any other questions for me?
I don't like getting up here doing this. Just as a realtor's point of view, myself, as we said earlier,
We need
if
your
I'm
name
showing
and
a piece
address,
of
please.
property, do what?
Need your name and address, please.
Oh, Brenda Hutchison, 2501 Fox Drive, Poplar Bluff, Missouri. Been a resident for about 40 years here. Just to show clients' property in Poplar Bluff in certain parts of the area, especially if they're from out of town and they see this really great price on something, is offering a lot. Then we take them to that area, and then they're going to say, well, that's the reason why. It's really embarrassing. We're hoping that they're looking that way and not seeing what they're coming into. So it's very difficult to sell property for our listing clients to get rid of because of what's going on in Poplar Bluff. There is no reason Poplar Bluff has to be this dirty. It needs to be cleaned up. We go into other cities, and I'll drive around, I'm thinking, oh my gosh, look how clean this is. If you give somebody an inch, they're going to take a mile. And that's what's happened, I think, to some of these areas here. Nothing's been done to make them do what they're supposed to do as a citizen of Poplar Bluff. And so now it's just gotten out of hand. So we're going to have to take one step in front of the other, everybody working together, and come up with some solutions, and it's not going to be done overnight. This has gone on for a long time. So it's going to take a while to get it cleaned up. But if you don't clean it cleaned up, I mean, there's development going on, there's new people coming into our area, and when they look at certain areas of this town, it's kind of bad. It's embarrassing for all of us. So that's just my feelings to it. And I'm also a landlord. We just need to work together as a whole and try to get it cleaned up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Time I'd entertain a motion and second to move this to the voting session to be held April 2nd.
So moved.
Motion second. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Moving on to action required items. Bill number 8062, the city council will take action on an ordinance approving a conditional use permit for a daycare center for up to 80 children in a C1 neighborhood commercial district for South Central Missouri Community Action Agency, care of Ann Smith, for property located at 1150 Herschel Best Boulevard.
Move for first reading of bill number 8062 by caption only.
Second.
Motion second, first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Richardson?
An ordinance granting a conditional use permit to South Central Missouri Community Action Agency for the operation of a daycare center at 1150 Herschel Best Boulevard in Poplar Bluff.
Motion for second reading, bill number 8062.
Second.
Motion second for second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Richardson?
An ordinance granting a conditional use permit to South Central Missouri Community Action Agency for the operation of a daycare center at 1150 Herschel Best Boulevard in Poplar Bluff.
Move for adoption of bill number 8062.
Second.
Motion second to adopt. Any questions or comments? Roll call, Mrs. Kirby.
Councilwoman Horton,
Yes.
Councilman Crocker,
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilman Davis,
Yes.
Councilman Black,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh.
Yes.
Mayor DeGaris.
Yes.
7 yes votes.
Thank you. Bill number 8062 is adopted. Bill number 8063, the city council will take action on an ordinance rezoning property from RS2 general residential to C1 neighborhood commercial and approving a conditional use permit to operate an outdoor sports paintball business for property located at 2318 North Main Street and owned by Jeff Hovis.
Motion for first reading of 8063.
Second.
Motion second for first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Richardson?
An ordinance rezoning property located at 2318 North Main Street from RS2 General Residential to C1 Neighborhood Commercial and further granting a conditional use permit to operate an outdoor sports paintball business.
Move for second reading of bill number 8063 by caption only.
Second.
Motion second for second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Richardson?
An ordinance rezoning property located at 2318 North Main Street from RS2 General Residential to C1 Neighborhood Commercial and further granting a conditional use permit to operate an outdoor sports paintball business.
Motion for adoption of 8063.
Second.
Motion second to adopt. Any questions or comments? Roll call, Mrs. Kirby.
Councilman Crocker.
Yes.
Councilman Smith,
Yes.
Councilman Davis,
No.
Councilman Black,
Yes.
Councilwoman Horton,
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh,
Yes.
and Mayor DeGaris.
Yes.
We have 6 yes votes, 1 no.
Thank you. Bill number 8063 is adopted. Bill number 8064, the city council will take action on an ordinance selecting an architectural firm relative to the Rogers Theater project.
Move for first reading of bill number 8064 by caption only.
Second.
Motion second for first reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Richardson?
An ordinance of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, selecting an architectural firm for the Rogers Theater project.
Move for second reading on bill number 8064 by caption only.
Second.
Motion second for second reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Richardson?
An ordinance of the City of Poplar Bluff, Missouri, selecting an architectural firm for the Rogers Theater project.
Move for adoption of bill number 8064.
Second.
Motion second to adopt. Any questions or comments? Roll call, Mrs. Kirby?
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Black?
Yes.
Councilwoman Horton?
Yes.
Councilman Crocker?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh?
Yes.
And Mayor DeGaris?
Yes.
7 yes votes.
Thank you. Resolution number 1872, the City Council will take action on a resolution appointing directors to the Poplar Bluff Regional Transportation Development District.
Move for the reading of Resolution 1872.
Second.
Second.
Motion second for the reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Richardson?
A resolution authorizing the appointment of directors to the Poplar Bluff Regional Transportation Development District.
Move for adoption of resolution number 1872.
Second.
Motion second to adopt. Any questions? Roll call, Mrs. Kirby?
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Black?
Yes.
Councilwoman Horton?
Yes.
Councilman Crocker?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh?
Yes.
And Mayor DeGaris?
Yes.
7 yes votes.
Thank you. Resolution number 1873, the City Council will take action on a resolution appointing directors to the Oak Grove Transportation Development District.
Move for the reading of Resolution 1873.
Second.
Motion second for the reading. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Mr. Richardson?
A resolution authorizing the appointment of directors to the Oak Grove Transportation Development District.
Move for adoption of Resolution 1873.
Second.
Motion second to adopt. Any comments? Roll call, Mrs. Kirby?
Councilman Black?
Yes.
Councilwoman Horton?
Yes.
Councilman Crocker?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh?
Yes.
And Mayor DeGaris?
Yes.
7 yes votes.
Thank you. Resolution 1873 is passed. Item FF, the City Council of the City of Poplar Bluff will meet in a closed meeting which they will discuss such matters which are exempt under the Open Meeting Law, Section 610.021.1, .2, .3, .9, .11, .12, .13, and .14 of the revised statutes of Missouri.
Mr. Mayor, I make a motion we move into closed session after the city manager's report.
Second.
Motion and second. Roll call, Mrs. Kirby?
Councilwoman Horton?
Yes.
Councilman Crocker?
Yes.
Councilman Smith?
Yes.
Councilman Davis?
Yes.
Councilman Black?
Yes.
Mayor Pro Tem McVeigh?
Yes.
And Mayor DeGaris?
Yes. Thank you. Mr. Massingham?
I talked to Mr. Godwin this morning. We had a very successful rodeo over the weekend at the Black River Coliseum. Sounds like they netted around $15,000 on our side, so that's good. Remind everybody again, Buff Up the Bluffs, April 28th. I challenge anybody that has a pickup truck, if your neighbor or you know someone that has trash and can't get it to Buff Up the Bluff, to please help them and try to help Poplar Bluff get cleaned up. Other than that, I thought we would discuss the moving of municipal court and the council chambers again. I know Ms. Fox from downtown Poplar Bluff came before the council, and her and I didn't discuss any specific places, but she did say we were probably looking at rent from $500 on up. My goal was, if we're going to move court and council chambers out of here, I was trying to do that without any renovation cost or paying any rent, and I guess I'm still coming back with the Black River Coliseum as the alternative, but I'll open it up for discussion.
Let's go with it. I think it's a good idea.
I think you had a good option for us on a temporary basis.
Yes, definitely
Make
temporary.
available- Ought to make ourselves available to it.
Mr. Million?
And I'm not doing any Trump tweets here. Some notes here. But I want to give you sort of an update on the municipal court accommodations from the perspective of a municipal court employee. As you know, our clerk's offices are now located down with the City Hall, and that's worked pretty well. The space there is a bit cramped, but it is working. We're in municipal court, and we're sort of an inverse oasis. Oases are usually wet and green. We're dry over there. I don't know why we have been able to avoid the deluge that we've had in the rest of this complex here. We could stay there. We have had a hiccup when it got so cold. I have evidently some pipes froze. Now, if you are a defendant and you want to use a restroom, a bailiff will have to escort you to a restroom that's just on the other side of this hall. It's not the best situation in the world, but I sort of advocated leave us here until we come up with a solution that's acceptable to all of you. I'm not advocating for a particular place or particular configuration, but since the discussions began in 2015 about possibly a new city hall, I have put out there, and I don't want to say as strongly as advocated, that we could share space, we being the municipal courtroom. We all know that municipal court has court days only certain days of the month, and that's 4 or 5 a month. We have court every day, but we just don't have it in that courtroom. There are many cities in the state of Missouri where the municipal court shares space with their council. Kirkwood does it, Rolla does it, Maplewood does it, Arnold does it, Harrisonville, smaller, Liberty, and Florissant uses their community center. When we first started meeting as a committee in 2015, I found some pictures out on the internet across the United States where a configuration could work. Seems to me a good use of the space. If you decide that we are going to go down to the Coliseum, it would give us an opportunity now to determine whether or not municipal court could share space with the council or the other board meeting members and see how that works. See if it works for you, see if you think there ought to be any fine tuning to that, and then that would give you sort of a benchmark to decide about construction later on. Let me tell you though, we need very limited space if we share with you. I suspect that the municipal clerk's offices and the prosecutor's offices in a new complex wouldn't have to be more than 1,200 square feet. Now, we've had some new requirements as far as municipal court operating rules. They want to make sure that the municipal court doesn't look like that it is an extension of another department or another agency of the government. Cape Girardeau just built a brand new police department municipal court complex, and they put them together, but they felt like that they could accomplish the state mandates by signage. And I think that if we decide, if you all decide that we go down to the Coliseum, that on court day we'll put up a sign that says municipal court. You know, on other days you would have whatever other sign that you have there. I think we can make it work. If you want us to stay here, I don't like change. I sort of like that room over there. But I know that it is getting unmanageable as far as the defendant's concerned. Fortunately, we have 2 private security people that act as our bailiff. We only pay for 1, but we get 2, and that extra one, Mr. Crawford, walks people to the restroom. It gets a bit tedious, but I think we can make it work. I would welcome the opportunity, though, to share space, and hopefully it'll work for all of us. Any questions about what we do over there, what we need to do? Okay, thanks.
Thank you, Dean.
I still get complaints from folks that do not want us to go to the Coliseum. I mean, every time it gets out that we might go there, their concerns are the security, people be wandering around, the parking, the hill, the rodeo being there. It could be the elephants, it could be a music venue. So I don't know. I don't know the answer. I just know that I still get complaints. Please, please, please don't go to the Coliseum.
Like I said, I'm just trying to avoid paying more rent for another place or renovation, so I don't know where else the city has that we could go.
We don't, yeah.
We really don't.
I don't like the idea either, but I think we're stuck. I really don't like the idea, but I don't know where else we can go.
Well, can we leave the court here since they don't want to move?
I don't know, the conditions to me are deplorable with the bathrooms.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
The humidity in the building,
It's not a safe environment for anyone to be
It's not
in.
a safe,
Mr. Manager, what will be the entryway and exit? Will it be the way it is now? Or will they come in through a different?
no, they would come in on the side street by the pool. There's a back entrance there, and they would come down the hall.
It'll be the northwest corner, I guess.
Yes,
So
which
that
would take
be
them.
their only way in, the only way out?
Yes,
How
we
would
would
you
have
direct
signage
that?
up. We'll have signage. I mean, first few times, I'm sure it'll be a little more difficult, but as they learn, they come straight down that hall, and there'd be barricades, so they couldn't go into the arena, they couldn't go up on the stairs, and they couldn't get, at the end of the hall, be another barricade.
So it's stuff like all the meetings that board meetings, excuse me, all our committee meetings that we have, are they gonna be in there too?
Yes.
Is that gonna put the Black River Coliseum at a disadvantage to hold any kind of functions?
They told me they could work around it, so.
Well, like I said, there's no place else for us to go, but I don't like the idea, but I don't know where else to go.
No, I mean, it's not the greatest location, that's for sure.
Okay.
Make a motion that we move city court to the Coliseum and the council chamber.
Do we do that right now?
Board meetings.
And other board?
Yeah, it'd be all the board meetings, so.
Second.
Any
Starting
functions that
when?
are handled here?
Just as soon as we can, probably not within the next 2 weeks, but sometime in April, I would say.
Motion, really, at this point in time, is in the form of a resolution directing the city manager to move forward with the proposed
Motion to move
plan.
forward.
And it just requires a voice vote.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed?
The only other thing, I wanted to congratulate the Neelyville Lady Tigers for winning the state championship. They're 20 miles from us, but they're definitely a part of our community, and big congratulations to them. That's all I have.
Motion to adjourn?
Second.
We're adjourned.
Closed session, huh?